Welcome. Duck Legs Podcast is back yet again.
Thank you for tuning in.
We just got done interviewing Alan
Fredendall.
Nice, strong.
Yeah, learned a lot about student debt.
Learned
a lot about how much universities are getting paid.
He wrote a great article that caused a lot of traffic, a lot of debate and discussion on the profits public PT school departments make. Alan has his hands in everything. Whether it's the American Academy of Orthopedic Fellows, or whether it's writing for PT on ICE with Jeff Moore doing research on tuition, whether it's forming a soon-to-be physio quiz bowl. Physio quiz bowl, how cool is that going to be?
Yeah,
right?
Super cool.
Not like the nerdy shit we did in high school. Beta club. But fuck Beta club.
You were in that club?
No.
Loser. I was playing football. Single A, dude. Actually, the smallest school in the state of Tennessee that still had a football team. Yeah. Shout out National Christian won the state championship last year. I went 2-8 my senior year. We weren't good.
You get any scholarship offers?
No,
sure. How many other PT students do you know like Alan?
None. Right? You ever have that moment when you're looking at someone and you're like, how'd you get to be like this?
Yeah.
What like do you wait? What was it? How much coffee do you drink? And he makes it very clear, like, if you're not part of the future,
and you're part of the past.
That's gonna be the quote. So again, thank you so much, Alan, coming your way.
Thank you.
Get hot.
Ooh, get hot. You know what else I want to say? To anybody that's taking the time to listen this far into the Facebook message, thank you.
I appreciate your diligence.
And your commitment. Hopefully we're providing some entertainment and some value, a little bit of humor to brighten up your day. But hey, and also we'd be forever in debt to your loyalty and service. If you take the time, go on iTunes or our Facebook page or whatever platform you prefer, feel like going to, leave a little review if you enjoyed our shit or not. If you didn't like it, say that shit too. You guys got 1 star because you talked too long. I didn't even know what was going on until I got to the 90-second mark.
It's true.
Who would say such a thing?
I don't know. Imbeciles.
If you got the time, go on iTunes, go on our Facebook page, leave a little review, tell us to go fuck ourselves, whatever, or leave a 5-star review. I mean, that's totally up to you.
Yeah. It's either 5 or 1.
It's either
you don't get a choice.
You don't get a choice if you have the time. Again, leave a 5-star review or a 1-star review. If you choose to do so, leave a review, whether positive or negative. We will send you a free Duck Legs t-shirt that hasn't been made yet.
Yeah, we don't have that. We don't have that. No, we don't have any t-shirts.
But when we do get them, you will get a free one. You'll get 2 free ones. One, an extra large and an extra small.
5 or 1.
5 or 1. Thank you.
Loading up music. We like this style.
It's kind of one of those things. It's like the duck. You see a duck in the water, right? The duck looks like it's cool, but the duck's freaking working hard under the water. Wow, working hard. That's how our place is. We look cool, but we're working hard.
Trying to add something funny there.
You are funny. That's okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You know who else is funny?
Who?
Alan. He's got that super dry, dark sense of humor. We were gonna lead with another question, but I think set us up for a good opening. Your comedic influences, sir.
Man, that's a good question. I don't know that I have any influencers. I have a couple that I really like. I really like Eddie Murphy, Louis C.K.
Yeah.
And then I kind of grew up in my formative years listening to Dave Chappelle. I saw him live a couple times.
Ooh. How was your experience with Chappelle live?
I saw him live for the first time in Kalamazoo, and it was insane. It was 10 times better than watching him on Chappelle Show.
Wow.
Just very dynamic, very interactive with the crowd. Kind of played off the crowd.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Chappelle Show bit?
Man, that's a good one. I don't know that I have one. I can't think of one in particular.
That's all right.
Isn't live comedy just so much of a different thing than watching it on TV?
Yeah, and so when I saw him for the first time, it was after Chappelle Show had already got famous, and it was funny. People in the crowd were shouting out stuff from Chappelle's show, and like "I'm Rick James, bitch" and all that kind of stuff. And he was just having none of it. He shut everyone down. He had like he was a separate person on stage, I guess you could say. And he kind of had his own agenda that he wanted to get to, and whenever anyone interrupted him, he just heckled them right back. It was awesome.
That is beautiful.
Nice.
We all know that your favorite Chappelle Show bit is the one where he was blind. We all know that one. That is probably the most famous one. I'm telling you. That say again?
Clayton Bigsby?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That was
Bigsby.
take it off. And he took off the mask, and I'm telling you, they haven't been that surprised since the '08 election.
Show us your face.
Show your face. Yeah, no. I'm telling you, that was classic.
So, speaking of faces, Alan's got a really nice one.
Thank you.
And on that nice face, you have an even nicer beard.
Oh, man, not anymore. I shaved the other day.
Oh, no.
No, what?
Yeah.
The wind hits the face, and it's like a naked face at that point.
Yep. So I have clinical rotation starting Monday, and I haven't heard from them, so I don't know what their guidelines are. So I went clean shaven.
Wow.
In the off chance that they don't allow facial hair.
How do you feel about that decision?
I don't like it. I've been growing that beard for at least 6 months now. So.
Oh my God.
So before the RIP the beard, but before the tragic date, what beard tips do you have for the young men out there?
You got to brush it. You got to treat it like normal hair. You got to get oil, like some sort of beard oil, and use a lot of oil and kind of tame it with a nice like horsehair brush.
Wow.
See, I've tried that oil, and I felt like my face was just glistening. Like,
you probably use too much. You got to get like a barber's brush that you would normally put shaving cream on, and just put a little bit of oil on it, and then work it into your beard. And that way you get your beard saturated instead of just getting your face all oiled up.
You got to saturate the beard.
And as a person who cannot grow facial hair in the right way, I have like splotches.
You get like the crackhead beard.
Yeah, I can honestly say that I am as depressed as you are for you losing your beard, man. I can always appreciate a really good beard because I cannot grow one at all. No.
It'll be back.
Yeah. Yes. Hopefully.
You don't need a beard, Daimir.
Appreciate that.
People who don't have beards.
Yeah.
So Alan, do you being up there at Flint, Michigan, are you hanging out with clean-faced Michael Moore all the time?
Oh, the political guy?
Yeah.
He doesn't even live here, man. You guys didn't know that? He lives, I forget where he lives. He lives in the suburbs of Detroit, though. He lives in like a mansion.
Ooh.
He doesn't live anywhere near Flint.
He sure talks about it a lot.
Yeah, that's just his gimmick.
Yeah, I know I saw one of your posts on Facebook that you got your student group together and you had a water project out there, right, to help some folks out?
Yeah, so we have at school we have a DPT Student Association. One of the things we were doing the past year was working with a group called the Flint Water Project. which is like a group. It was a nonprofit that's a whole bunch of different businesses in the Flint area organized together. And before the National Guard came, we were handing out water, collecting water, handing out water, filters, stuff like that. And then once the National Guard came, we kind of got overpowered. They were on every corner basically, but we were doing that for a couple of months before the National Guard got there.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Just like you called out Michael Moore living in his mansion, we know you also called out some universities as well. On a recent popular article that has got you some attention. I think Daimir knows what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, man. So, Alan, the article, the ICE Physio article, what made you come about putting that out there? And then what made you go about actually collecting all of that data? And then just speak on what made you do that.
And how did Julian Assange feel about you releasing that?
Speaking of nice beards, I saw him on TV the other day. He's got a nice beard going on, living at the Ecuadorian embassy over there.
You got to stay fresh over there.
Yeah. So that originally came as part of a class project. We gave that presentation on student loan debt, and we looked at just the schools in Michigan, their revenues and what they spend on salaries and benefits for professors for their PT programs. And then after that, Jeff Moore approached us and talked to us about expanding the scope of that research to the national level. So we did. We looked at every public PT program. And over the course of 3-ish months, whatever we couldn't find internally from universities, we submitted Freedom of Information Act requests and got that information and compiled it all together in a spreadsheet. And then I wrote the blog article for Jeff's website.
Oh, yeah. And that's PT on Ice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. What were some of the big takeaways from that for you?
For me, when I look at that data, I see that it just, if I were to be myself 3 years ago and see that data, it would be helpful for choosing where to go. Because I think what's important to remember is that everyone is more or less getting the same education at every program, becoming sort of a generalist PT, taking pretty much the same courses. So with that in mind, that data tells you where is your money being spent the best. I see programs that spend more on faculty, salary, and benefits as spending their money better, because it means less money is going back to the university, whether it to be subsidize other programs at the university or to pay for sports teams or whatever. The less money that leaves the program, the better.
And not to, if you feel comfortable with calling out, some universities, which ones are some of the ones, and obviously people can go look at it, but which one were some of the ones that you just were shocked by about what they were doing, and which ones were some of the ones that you really were somewhat impressed with?
There's a couple that are actually, I can't remember them offhand. There's a couple that are actually in the red or very close to it.
Yeah.
That only have a net difference between revenue and paying out salaries of tens of thousands of dollars compared to, there's a lot where the difference is over $1 million. What really surprised me is just the bigger programs like USC, $42 million a year in revenue is just kind of mind-boggling. And there's some other schools that stand out there. I want to say University of Utah, just schools you wouldn't think of that at least I've never heard of, that seem just kind of run-of-the-mill state schools that have higher end revenue. Yeah,
I'm trying to look for some of those red ones. I saw those too, and that's pretty. Would you say that's like impressive that they are in the red?
I don't know that it's impressive. It means that they're probably keeping revenue low, or they're putting more money back into the program than what the university takes away. And it's definitely interesting to see knowing that they probably have other costs on top of that and they're probably more in the red, but for whatever reason, the university is keeping it going.
So, and when you see those, because I'm naturally drawn to the far right, the PT, not politically, sorry, on this graph. that's another podcast discussion. For the PT department, the profits, and you look at some of the millions that these programs are making, is that a bad thing?
I mean, so the biggest problem we had going through this research is that it was next to impossible to get sort of the day-to-day operational costs for these programs. Some school, like at Flint, each program pays for like utilities, and they pay like almost like a rent for their offices back to the university out of the revenue they generate. Whereas at other schools, programs don't do that. It's just, it comes from the university, but all the extra money goes back to the university and they handle it. So, without getting those day-to-day costs, it's impossible to say what the true profit is. And I don't know that it's a bad thing, because sometimes that money goes back to subsidize other programs within the university. Where I think it's a problem is when that money goes to subsidize things like sports, which is,
Yeah.
I like college sports as much as anyone else, but that's not the point of college, is sports. The point is to educate.
You sure about that?
I don't know. The SEC down here, man, is you couldn't tell.
Yeah, and it's kind of become just a given that every school will have sports teams. I went to undergrad at Eastern Michigan, and to this day, they're convinced that they're a football school, and they spend tens of millions of dollars on their football team. When I was there, they spent $16 million on a indoor practice dome.
Yeah.
And you see things like that, and you think, wow, what if that money stayed in the programs that generated it? What could be done with that, instead of each school trying to have the best football, basketball teams, and stuff like that.
Wow. Well, I went to Louisiana State University, so I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is another kind of difficult question, but you see this variance in numbers, and you were talking about how difficult it was for you to kind of figure out where it's, really, is it coming up or down or getting a hold on it? And would you say that the university themselves might not even know, are they just kind of winging it, shooting from the hip, and just hopefully everything ends up okay?
I've got to imagine at some level they know, because just from my own experience of getting travel scholarships and stuff and submitting all the receipts, like they're definitely getting that information for all of their individual like line item expenses, but whether or not that's being tracked at the organizational level, I don't know. What I noticed going through the budget sheets from universities is that a lot of universities, the bottom line budget from their annual budget book would just have all of the revenue equal all of the costs, and they would say that their total profit was zero, and thus they remain a nonprofit state school without any detail aside from the numbers, the final numbers.
Yeah. It makes me wonder how much they're just trying to do exactly like, they're influenced by other universities, and they're just saying, oh, everyone's going up in tuition. We that's what they're doing. We need to do it too. And they're not really thinking for themselves at all.
Yeah. And when you see schools raise tuition 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times the inflation rate, you have to wonder, why do they need to raise it that much? Here in Michigan, there's a tuition cap on state schools of 4%, and there were just 2 schools this year that raised it. like 9%.
That's modest.
And the money they generate from that extra tuition outweighs the penalties from the state, so it doesn't
Really?
gap.
Oh,
So
wow.
When I see things like that, I have to think like, why does it have to go up by that much each year?
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
That's wild to know that it outpays the fee. Like, yeah, I'll take the hit, no problem.
I'll take the luxury tax.
God.
So to switch gears just a tad bit, now that we understand that we have this issue, Alan, what do you believe that us as a society or even the schools themselves do to change this? I know that you were a huge proponent of the RC11 bill. Do you believe it's a APTA issue? Do you believe it's a sort of kind of capitalistic society issue? Or do you believe that us as students need to stand up and march and say, you know what, we're not going to take this anymore? So our combination of all three.
I think a combination of all three. I think schools should educate students before they begin there, but that kind of presents a conflict of interest. They're not going to tell you that they're not the best school that you should go to if you're looking to manage costs. I think with RC11, the APTA can really get behind this issue by having data like this available for people to look at before they commit to a school, as well as education about how to manage a budget and how to keep costs low, how student loans work, what you can expect after school with student loans and stuff like that. But I think it's a bigger societal issue too, that we've gotten to this point with loans because funding for education has just continually dropped. 20 or 30 years ago, there were some states where you could get a bachelor's degree for either free or almost nothing because the state education department was that well funded. And I think it'll have bigger ramifications too the longer it goes on if it continues like this. There was just an article a couple weeks ago that homeownership is at its all-time low since 1965, which is when they started tracking homeownership rate, and it's basically an inverse correlation between student loan debt and homeownership. So like I talked about in our debt presentation, if you're spending all of your money each month on student loans, you're not putting money back into the economy. So it becomes a society-wide issue when people coming out of school have a ton of debt and they're not buying anything. They're not buying cars or clothes or houses. Everyone else kind of starts to feel that sooner or later.
And you, along with your classmates, did a whole presentation on this, right? On this whole topic.
Yeah, so it was part of a class we had called Professional Issues in PT. Each week, a couple different groups presented on kind of current and relevant issues in physical therapy, and our group presented on student loans and debt management.
I know you mentioned that the economy hurts when we have so many students focusing all their money on trying to pay these bills back, these loan bills, as soon as possible. That's generally, we can say that's probably not a good thing for the economy, right?
Yeah.
I believe I submitted a question to you when you were polling students for questions like, is this bubble going to burst? Is this student loan bubble going to burst just like the housing one did at some point, you know?
See, I don't know, because at least with PT school, everyone is on federal loans, so that bubble bursting would mean something happening at the federal government level, which I don't see happening because they're making money on this too. They make 4.5% of the principal of every loan you take out. So if you're borrowing about $10,000 a semester, they're getting $450 from you right off the top with each loan. So they're making money too, and as long as the default rate stays relatively low, they'll be making more than they lose as people repay their loans.
Oh, that's good for them.
So I don't see it being, crashing. What I do see is people deciding not to go to school as they learn more and more about what what will be expected of them after they graduate, as far as how much student loans they'll have. So there's already some people in PT telling people not to go to PT school because it's not a good investment. So I think you'll see more and more of that unless something shifts.
You feel like it's a good investment for yourself?
I think it's a good investment for anyone. If you love physical therapy, then the cost shouldn't matter to you. You'll pay it off sooner or later in the end. As far as just looking at the raw numbers, there are probably other degrees that you could come out with making more with less debt. And if you want to just make money, then maybe PT isn't the best for you. But if you want to be a PT, you want to be in the physical therapy realm, I think it's still a good investment.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Bit of a uplifting thing,
Yeah. I know Daimir can attest to this. I'd love to hear both of y'all's thoughts on this. Like, whenever I hear Eugene Shirakarbrad, I think Alan, you know who that guy is.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Whenever he's on a podcast and like somebody's asking him, is PT school a good investment? I like almost hear him get out of his chair and slap the person in the face to be like, it's the best investment. Like, oh, $100,000 you can make that shit back. It's like he's always like, whenever I hear him, he's like, oh, I'm so. When he was talking to K-Star on the Therapy Insiders podcast, he was like, oh, I'm so excited. I want to go out and make businesses now. And like, he's so passionate and he's so positive, and we know he's a Jedi and everything, and up on top of the mountain. And Daimir and Alan, so what do you think? Like, I know Daimir is ready to burst at the seams as far as entrepreneurship and making change in this profession. So, and Alan, and what are your goals towards your upcoming graduation and making back your loans and changing the profession?
Well, actually, I don't have as many loans. I'm going to be taking out some the next couple semesters because I won't be able to work and I'll be on clinical.
Well, excuse you.
I don't have as many as most because my undergrad and my first year of PT school were paid with a GI Bill.
That's awesome.
So I'm not in as rough shape as some people coming out of school. I'd like to open my own practice. I'm also looking at going back into the Army as a PT.
Wow.
So the future is not set yet for me. Still have a couple months to see. I know my wife would like to move. We're kind of stuck in Southeast Michigan right now with school being nearby and clinicals and stuff. So after that, we might be looking at moving, whether it's through the military or going into private practice somewhere.
That's awesome.
And I think just like Gene says, yeah, it's going to be rough paying back a whole bunch of loans if you just want to go work 9 to 5 somewhere and put cold packs on knees. But if you're willing to work evenings, if you're willing to work weekends, if you are passionate about PT and you want to find an area where there's room for a lot of growth, then you won't have any trouble paying back your loans.
So just to touch on that, to answer Jared's question as well, and I know this is definitely dear to your heart as well as mine, is the drive to continue to be the physical therapist, and everyone on this podcast. But I've seen that you talk about multiple times, Alan, the drive to not just be a physical therapist and work that 9 to 5 job, but to actually get out there and do more than that. And where it used to be okay to do that, we didn't have as many loans. I actually was speaking with this about Jerry Durham a little bit on our last podcast about how, was the student loan a blessing and a curse in a weird way that it made us get off of our butts and look out there and say, you know what, we have to do better at marketing. We have to do better at reaching the patients. We have to do more than just put the ice packs on patient knees and actually be entrepreneurs. Do you believe that even with as much as the debt talk that we have now, do you believe that it's something that made us say, you know what, we have to do more than just be physical therapists. We have, the 0.1 or the 1.0 therapist, but to be that 2.0 therapist.
Yeah, I think it's the whole system is definitely changing because of students coming out of school with more debt than normal. I definitely think 20, 30 years ago, you did not see PTs working 2 or 3 jobs like you do now. which is, you can see there's pushback. People coming out of school say, well, I'm a doctor now. Why should I have to work 2 or 3 jobs? And I can see that side of the coin. But on the other hand, even employers are changing now, knowing that students are coming out with a lot more debt. And it's actually better for patients. I look at, there's some hospitals now offering PTs who work Saturdays and Sundays. If you work 2 12s on Saturday and Sunday, they'll pay you for a 40-hour work week. And, that's kind of better for everyone. It's better for the PT who's making more money to pay off their loans, but it's also better for the patient because now patients are getting expanded hours, 7 days a week care, that sort of thing. So it's kind of changing the whole system. And I think the important thing to remember is that without student loans, most people wouldn't be in PT school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as much as we hate them, we do need them. Without it, we'd kind of go backwards where only the super rich could afford school.
Don't try to make me feel grateful about my loans.
Perspective.
Just to switch gears a little bit, I noticed that you have done some great work with AAOMPT and actually went to the conference while some of us was at NSC. Can you speak on that work and sort of kind of what made you go into that realm and your role as the president of the SIG? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's actually my second conference. I went in 2015 was my first conference down in Louisville, and I never heard of it before. It's the start of my second year, and we have an AAOMPT fellow at my school, and she told us about the organization. And for those who don't know, AAOMPT is AAOMPT. It's the American Academy of Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapy. So it's kind of similar to the orthopedic section and sort of its focus on orthopedics and manual therapy. But it's also an organization that regulates the training of manual therapy fellows in the United States and kind of got the United States involved in a bigger organization called the International Federation of Orthopedic and Manipulative Therapy, which is a subsection of the World Conference on PT. So when I went to the first conference in 2015, I just really liked the vibe. There was lots of very high quality presentations. Began to notice a theme that kind of the biggest movers and shakers in PT happened to also be AAOMPT fellows. And it was just, it's a smaller group, so there's only I think about 2,500 people total between fellows, members, and students in the academy. And there's only about 600 or so that go to the annual conference. So it's a much smaller conference than something like CSM or even NEXT or NSC. And while I was there, I got involved in the student SIG for the first time. So this past year, I was the conference chair. I helped plan events for this past October events at that conference, and then as elected president of the student SIG last month. I think it's, as much as it is a focus on orthopedic and manual PT, it's also, to me, I see it as a source of really high quality research and clinical reasoning, which can be applied to things besides just straight ortho or manual PT. So this year, as the president of the student SIG, I want to expand a program we have called AAOMPT Student Local, which is these little groups at each individual PT program that meets a few times a semester and just does more extracurricular hands-on manual events as well as clinical reasoning practice.
Cool.
I'm down for that. That sounds great.
That sounds super cool. I mean, I know students are always waiting to get their hands dirty, if you will, out there in the field. In your humble opinion, with the general population out there, people who say, oh, I have shoulder pain, how many of those people truly need to have physical therapy hands on them and manual stuff right there? And, can stretching really get rid of that? Or do a lot of those people really just need some hands placed on them to help with that?
I think there's a certain expectation when you go to a physical therapist that you're going to get hands-on care. My personal personal bias is that maybe there are some patients who don't need it as far as fixing their problems, but most patients like it and expect it. I always think it's kind of weird if you go to a PT and they never touch you. If they just, look at you moving and give you some exercise. When I see a PT practice like that, I'm not sure how they're much different from an athletic trainer or a personal trainer. I think there's definitely a therapeutic aspect to manual therapy for most patients. I think it's while it might be overused in an outpatient orthopedic setting, it's probably underused in other settings.
Very cool. So do you see yourself being fellowship trained one day?
Yeah, that's one of my goals. I'd like to do, I don't know if I'll necessarily go through an orthopedic residency, but I would like, my ultimate goal is to be a fellow, yes.
Awesome.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to part 1 of the Alan Fredendall interview on the Duck Legs podcast. We really enjoyed having him on. He was the first DPT student, so that was very exciting. As you heard, we talked about his beard, the water project he had going on in Michigan, the jaw-dropping article that he had talking about student tuition, and also loans, and more loans, and we had a little conversation about that. So thank you again. Part 2 is up next, and go ahead and take a listen.